For this unit, we're going to start talking about Sachplakat, which is what came after Art Nouveau. It's a German word, obviously. And what characterized these advertising posters was that they were very simplified, minimalistic illustrations that usually contained a single object and a very bold headline. So this style was created by Lucien Bernhard in 1903 in Germany, so right before the First World War. He was actually entering a competition, and that's where this image came from, where he had an original poster with a cigar and an ashtray besides two wooden matches on a tablecloth with cigar smoke. So this smoke was actually representing what the Art Nouveau images had, where they had the flowing hair and all of these tendrils and curls and curvilinear lines. So this was sort of a far cry from that style. He was trying to deviate from that a little bit. Just the core of the image, nothing embellished, nothing additional, nothing to sort of situate the image in space. It's just purely just enough information to convey what the product is. The other thing he was trying to do was show that the advertising was exactly for the matches, not for a cigar company. He needed to distinguish the fact that this was the only product that the company was trying to market. What he did take from the Art Nouveau period, though, was this Japanese-made style, sort of a Japanese screen print image, flat colors, no shading, bold text, very geographic, and also the brown background. So as you can imagine, these posters were immediately rejected by the people in Germany at the time. This was kind of a revolutionary art style. This was not what people were used to. They didn't know how to take it. They were kind of hit with something brand new all at once. It's possible that he got his influence from the Biggerstaff brothers. Being immediately rejected, the man who was in charge of the competition, named Ernst Grauels, actually saw something of value in the posters, and he saw a relationship between the bold type and the object in the background. He thought that they all meshed very well together and that he could very well see how this could become something that was useful. And there is a quality to this that you could see this posted in a subway, in an underground station. It would definitely stand out to you. It's just bold, it makes a statement, and it's not anything, and there is no embellishment, there is no complexity to the image. However, it is immediately recognizable, and the colors have a lot of contrast to them. And the letters, the sans serif, is extremely bold and obvious to read. And Bernhard actually became a professional graphic designer. He sought to do that after he saw that he had these successes. He started to build a client base. And these posters were displayed on the street where they were going to be viewed by people kind of starting to live a more fast-paced life where they'd kind of almost just come up and glance at something, not give it a second thought. And these posters were perfect to fit in with that new lifestyle. And this is sort of when we're starting to see how this influenced modern advertisement, where you're kind of bombarded with these images and you can't really take time out of your day to analyze and appreciate the beautiful artwork of an advertisement. You just want an image that's going to stick with people, that they're going to not necessarily think about later, but that they can definitely recognize. These posters are starting to have a neon, iridescent, almost a more bold color palette. There's different inks that are being developed around this time that were able to sort of highlight the images a bit better, provide a little bit more brightness to them, a little better tonal quality. The word Sachplakat translates from German to English as object poster. So a lot of times in German, in case you haven't studied the language, a lot of words are compound words that are put together. So this was just a very new idea of the time. This was something that, it's just very different for people to get used to. Time, it wasn't so radical that we couldn't really see where it was coming from, because we do have the Japanese influence. So he was both looking to the future but also looking into the past, so as to sort of connect with people on some subconscious level. This next artist is the Viennese artist Julius Klinger, And he simplified the poster even a little bit more than Bernhard's posters. You can tell that this is a chandelier, but if you really think about it, it's just a bunch of geometric shapes put together. It's almost like a decorative or geometric design. It's almost like you can really reduce the image to its constituent parts. The only reason that you know it's a chandelier is the way that they're put together. And we see an even starker contrast between the foreground, which is the bright yellow chandelier, and the black background. You can see that they're starting to use a stroke on the text, so there's a white outline up here, so it's even helping it to stand out a little bit more. So we just have, basic colors. We got the yellow, the darker yellow, the white, and the black, and so everything that is meant to stand out is just even more exaggerated, even more extreme. And what's kind of interesting here is that to show the effect of these little orbs in the light bulbs glowing, he put little dots around instead of actually having beams of light or shading around them to show the effect of light. He just did it through almost a little pointillism technique. So I thought that was kind of cool that if you look at it from a distance, they're glowing. If you get up close, you can see that it's just more flat color again. So this is even more different and deviating from what we're used to. This was made by another sock plaquette designer. His name is Hans Rudy Ehrt, and believe it or not, this is actually an advertisement for cars. So instead of displaying the object itself, he sought to embody the type of person who would be owning this car. So you've got sort of this suave looking guy. He looks very official with the goggles perched upon his head. You can almost compare this to a modern fashion advertisement where they're not really showing much of the fashion itself, but they're showing the type of person who's going to be wearing it. So if you've ever noticed in magazines, you're looking at an ad and you're seeing almost maybe a naked figure and just a little hint of the fabric that they're wearing, and you're thinking, oh, how is this an advertisement for clothing when we're not really seeing clothing? So we're not explicitly seeing a car here. The O in the tile opal seems to represent a wheel. Something also cool about this image is that the collar of his shirt blends in with the background. We're just seeing kind of the shading to situate it in space and make it pop out a little bit. Feeling of prestige and confidence and something a little bit luxurious, maybe a little bit beyond just the necessity of owning a car, but the flashiness that goes along with having something that is powerful, maybe a racing vehicle. Important is the artist Ludwig Holbein, who was actually trained as an architect, but he changed that profession and decided to become a designer. So he did not totally become modernist in his approach. You can see sort of how he's going a little bit back to the Jugendstil, the Art Nouveau. Um, Kind of over in this corner, you can see the same thing with trying to fit the text into these narrow boxes, trying to manipulate the letters so that they fit in there perfectly, despite how they would hang over and extend typically beyond the lines. So you have sort of a disproportionate look for the letter O and for some of these smaller letters like the Q. But you are sort of seeing again like the image appearing straddled the background. You're seeing sort of these suave looking men with a very nice vehicle. So this is not quite as extreme as the other artists. This is not quite like the Hans Rudy Ehrt image for the car. This is a little bit more suggestive. So it's got kind of a nice mixture of the three-dimensional style. You kind of see how this is laid out. There's a little bit of shading just through the linear work here, but still flat colors and still very figurative and a little bit abstract, a little bit modern. So just kind of a nice combination. So a few years later, after he established himself as an artist, was when the First World War had started. Governments were beginning to control art and design to serve their own personal agendas. And because of this control, artists didn't have quite as much creative control over their artwork, and a lot of them were used in the war efforts. So their artwork was used to help assist with that. Um, and so thus the style that, and this is kind of a more modern example of the Sack-Plakat style. This is by the artist Otto Bomberger, who became popular a little later on after World War II. He was a little bit ahead of his time, and he used this version to sort of make a Swiss version of the Sack-Plakat style. So I thought that was kind of cool. And so yeah, this basically wraps up the Sack-Plakat imagery, and the next lecture will be about propaganda posters.